My grandfather was known as a great Islamic scholar. My great-grandfather before him taught Quran in Al-Azhar. My father memorized the Quran at a young age and trained many students. In our home, the Quran was not just a book. It was our daily breath. I was born in Egypt, in a family that everyone around us respected. My name is Yusuf. I was 12 years old when my life changed in a way I never expected. When I was chosen to represent my school and local mosque in a national Quran recitation competition, everyone celebrated. Relatives visited our house. Teachers praised me. My mother fasted and prayed for days. My father increased my training, waking me before dawn to revise long chapters. I felt tired, but I felt important. I believed this was my destiny. The competition was held in a large hall in Cairo. It was filled with scholars, judges, parents, and students like me. The air felt heavy. My heart beat fast, but I told myself to be strong. When my name was called, I walked to the microphone. Bright lights shone on my face. I began reciting slowly, carefully, exactly as I had been taught. At first, everything felt normal. Then something strange happened. My chest felt tight. My ears began to ring. The words I knew so well suddenly felt far away. I tried to continue, but my vision blurred. I remember thinking I must not stop. I must not fail my family. That was the last clear thought I had. My body became weak. My knees gave way. I fell to the floor in front of everyone. I could hear people shouting, but the sounds faded quickly. The hall disappeared. Darkness covered everything. I did not know it then, but my heart had stopped. For 6 minutes, my body lay still. And during those 6 minutes, I went somewhere that changed how I see everything. The darkness did not come suddenly. It felt like I was being pulled away from my body slowly, like drifting into deep water. At first, I could still hear voices far away. People were calling my name. Someone was crying. Then even those sounds faded, and there was only silence. I became aware that I was no longer feeling pain or fear. It was strange because I knew something was wrong, yet I felt light. I felt free. I did not feel the floor beneath me anymore. I did not feel my chest rising or falling. I realized I was not breathing, but it did not bother me. It was as if breathing was no longer necessary. I noticed that I could see, but not with my eyes the way I used to. I became aware of my body lying on the ground. I could see men rushing toward me. I saw a judge kneeling beside me. I saw my father push through the crowd, his face filled with panic I had never seen before. My mother was not there, but I felt her somehow, like a deep pull in my chest. I wanted to speak. I wanted to tell them I was still there. But no sound came from me. I tried to move, but I did not have hands or feet the way I remembered. I began to understand that I was no longer connected to my body. Fear finally came. Not a loud fear, but a deep one. I wondered if I was dying. I wondered if this was the end of my life at 12 years old. I thought of my family, my studies, my unfinished dreams. I wanted to go back, but I did not know how. Then the space around me changed. The hall vanished completely. I felt myself moving, not falling and not flying, but being guided. There was no wind, no sound, only motion. I did not see a tunnel the way people sometimes describe. Instead, it felt like layers were being passed, one after another, each one quieter than the last. I began to feel something watching me. Not in a frightening way, but in a serious way. It felt like nothing about me was hidden. Every thought I had ever had felt exposed. This made me uncomfortable. I had always believed I was a good boy. I prayed. I memorized scripture. I obeyed my parents. But now I felt small. Images began to appear around me. I saw moments from my life. Not just my good actions, but my thoughts. My pride when people praised my recitation. My anger when I lost competitions. My secret feelings of being better than other children. These moments did not accuse me with words, but they made me aware. I realized that knowing holy words did not mean my heart was always clean. This realization weighed on me more than fear of death. I felt like I was standing before truth itself, and truth did not flatter me. As this understanding grew, I sensed that I was not alone. A presence drew closer. It was not loud or forceful. It was calm, firm, and filled with authority. I could not see a face clearly, but I knew this presence was not human. It was not like any teacher or scholar I had known. This presence did not condemn me. Instead, it let me know that my life had purpose beyond what I understood. It revealed to me that knowledge without love becomes empty. It showed me that repeating sacred words without a changed heart does not fulfill what God desires. I wanted to ask many questions, but before I could, the space around me shifted again. The awareness deepened. I felt like I was being taken further, to a place of greater understanding. As I moved deeper, I became aware that this place was not like Earth. There was no sky and no ground the way I knew them. Yet everything felt real, more real than the competition hall, more real than my home. I felt awake in a way I had never felt before. My thoughts were clear, and my memory was sharp. Nothing was hidden from me, not even the thoughts I tried to forget while I was alive. I sensed that this place was a place of awareness. Everything looks real than my earthly life. Not judgment yet, but preparation. It was as if my soul had been paused so it could understand something important. I could feel the weight of truth pressing gently but firmly on me. It did not hurt, but it was heavy. I understood that truth carries weight, and every human life must face it one day. Scenes began to open around me again, but this time they were not just my memories. I saw people praying with their lips while their hearts were far away. I saw scholars arguing while pride filled their hearts. I saw children being pressured to perform, not out of love for God, but out of fear of disappointing men. When I saw these things, I realized I was one of those children. I remembered how nervous I felt before competitions, not because I feared dishonoring God, but because I feared embarrassing my family. I remembered how happy I felt when judges praised me, and how sad I felt when attention moved to someone else. These feelings were exposed clearly. I could not hide them or excuse them. I began to feel sorrow not just for myself, but for many people. I understood that religion can become a performance if the heart is not guarded. I understood that being born into a holy family does not make the soul pure by itself. These understandings did not come as spoken words. They came as deep knowing placed inside me. I also sensed time differently. I did not know how long I had been there. It felt both long and short at the same time. I became aware that my body on earth was still surrounded by people. I could sense urgency, like something was about to happen, but I did not yet know what. Then the presence returned, stronger than before. This time, I felt guidance, like a teacher leading a student, but with far greater authority. He let me know that I was being shown these things not to destroy me, but to teach me. He revealed that my life was not ending yet. I was being allowed to see so I could return changed. This surprised me. I did not know return was possible. I felt relief but also responsibility. I sensed that if I returned, my life would not be the same. I would not be allowed to live only for applause and tradition anymore. I was shown how fragile life is. One moment I was reciting sacred words, and the next I was outside my body. I understood that death does not wait for old age or completion. It comes when it is allowed to come. As this understanding settled inside me, the space began to shift again. The weight increased, not in fear, but in seriousness. I felt like I was being brought closer to a boundary, a place where a decision was made about whether I would continue forward or be sent back. I did not choose with words. My heart chose by understanding. I wanted to live differently. I wanted my heart to be changed, not just my memory filled. That desire seemed to be enough. I felt myself being turned back, gently but quickly, as if time was no longer available. The movement back was faster than anything before it. I did not feel fear, but I felt urgency. It was like being carried against a strong current. The place of awareness faded, and the heaviness lifted. I felt myself being pulled toward something familiar, something tight and limited. Suddenly I felt weight again. Real weight. My chest felt heavy, like a stone was placed on it. There was pressure, pain, and confusion all at once. I felt cold, then hot. Sounds rushed back into my awareness, loud and sharp. Voices overlapped. Someone was shouting my name. Someone else was calling for help. I felt a violent push inside my chest, and then air rushed into my lungs. I gasped so hard that my whole body jerked. My eyes opened and bright light hurt them. I began coughing, deep and painful coughs, like my body was remembering how to live again. People screamed. Some cried. I heard my father's voice, broken and shaking. His hands were on my face. I could not speak yet. My throat burned. My head felt heavy, like it did not fully belong to me. Later, I learned that a doctor in the audience had rushed forward. I learned that my heart had stopped completely. I learned that for 6 minutes, there was no pulse. People thought I was gone. Some were already covering their faces, believing they had witnessed a child die during a sacred recitation. As I lay there, trying to breathe, I felt different inside. Not excited, not proud, just quiet. Very quiet. It was like the noise inside me had been turned down. I was taken away on a stretcher. The ceiling lights passed over me as I was rushed through halls. I remember thinking how small everything looked. At the hospital, machines were attached to me. Doctors spoke in serious tones. My parents stayed close, refusing to leave. I slept and woke many times. Each time I woke, I felt the same deep calm mixed with confusion. I knew something had happened, but I did not yet understand how to explain it. When I was strong enough to speak, my father asked me what I remembered. I looked at his face and saw fear and gratitude together. I wanted to tell him everything, but the words did not come easily. How could I explain something that did not use language the way Earth does? I told him I was aware when my body was not moving. I told him I saw myself. I told him I learned things about my heart that I did not know before. He listened carefully, but I could see he was unsure what to think. He was a man of knowledge, trained to trust books and traditions. What I described did not fit easily into his understanding. Over the next days, news spread. People visited. Some called it a miracle. Some said it was just a medical event. Some warned my parents not to let me speak too much about it. But inside me, I knew it was more than my body failing and restarting. At night, when the room was quiet, I remembered the place of awareness. I remembered the weight of truth. I remembered how exposed my heart felt. These memories did not fade like dreams. They stayed clear, steady, and alive. I realized I had been given something precious, not to make me famous, but to change me. And that change was only beginning. When I finally returned home from the hospital, everything looked the same, but I did not feel the same inside. Our house still smelled like books and incense. The Quran shelves were still full. My father still woke before dawn to pray. My mother still whispered prayers while cooking. Yet something in me had shifted quietly, like a door that had been opened and could not be closed again. Relatives continued to visit. Some hugged me tightly. Some touched my head and called me blessed. Others looked at me with fear, as if I had brought something unknown back with me. Many asked me what I saw. Many wanted details. But I found it hard to speak freely. I did not want attention. The desire for praise that once lived strongly in me felt weak now. When I tried to recite again, my voice shook. Not from fear of forgetting verses, but from remembering the weight of truth I had felt. I realized that reciting holy words is not the same as living them. Before, I wanted to be known as the best. Now, I wanted to be honest inside. At night, I lay awake thinking. I thought about the presence that guided me. I thought about how my thoughts were exposed without anger, without shouting. I understood that God sees deeper than words, deeper than actions. He sees the heart clearly. My father noticed my silence. One evening, he sat beside me and asked if I was afraid to recite again. I told him I was not afraid of reciting, but afraid of pretending. I told him I did not want to speak words my heart did not fully understand. He was quiet for a long time. Then he placed his hand on my shoulder and said nothing. That silence felt heavy, but respectful. At school, teachers treated me differently. Some were gentle. Some watched me closely. Other children whispered about me. Some called me the boy who died. Some asked me if heaven was real. I did not know how to answer them simply. I only knew that life felt fragile now, like glass. I began to pray differently. Not longer, not louder, but more honestly. I spoke to God in my thoughts, asking Him to shape my heart, not just my memory. I did not feel special when I prayed. I felt small, and that felt right. I realized that being chosen to return was not a reward. It was a responsibility. I had been allowed to see, and now I was expected to live differently. That understanding followed me everywhere. As days turned into weeks, questions began to grow inside me. They were quiet questions, but they did not leave. I wondered why I was allowed to return when others were not. I wondered why truth felt heavier than rules. I wondered why my heart felt closer to God when I was honest about my weakness than when I tried to appear strong. I began to notice things I had ignored before. I saw how people argued over small religious details while forgetting kindness. I saw how some students memorized perfectly but spoke harshly to others. I saw how fear controlled many hearts, including mine before the collapse. These observations did not make me angry. They made me thoughtful. I felt like a child who had been allowed to peek behind a curtain and could no longer pretend the stage was everything. One night, while praying quietly, I felt that same guiding awareness again. Not in a dramatic way, but in a gentle inner knowing. He let me know that God desires truth in the inner being. He revealed to me that love is not proven by loud words, but by humble hearts. I understood that knowledge is meant to lead people closer to God, not higher than others. I did not suddenly become perfect. I still felt fear. I still felt confusion. But I began to listen more. I began to care more about how I treated people than how people saw me. This was new for me. I realized that my collapse was not only about my body. It was also about my pride falling. That understanding stayed with me quietly, shaping how I saw myself and others. As time passed, the fear around my experience slowly faded, but the understanding grew stronger. I began to see life differently, like someone who had been given a new pair of eyes. Small moments felt important. A kind word. A quiet apology. A sincere prayer. These things felt heavier than trophies or applause. I noticed that when people spoke about God, they often spoke with confidence but little humility. I recognized that same confidence in my past self. Before, I believed that being right was the same as being close to God. Now I understood that closeness comes from surrender, not certainty. Sometimes, while sitting alone, memories from those 6 minutes returned without warning. Not images, but feelings. The seriousness of truth. The exposure of the heart. The calm authority of the presence that guided me. He let me know again and again that God is not impressed by performance. He is moved by sincerity. I also became aware of love in a new way. Not love as a rule, but love as a life. I saw how easily people wounded each other with words while claiming devotion. I felt sadness for that. I felt a desire to be different, even if I did not yet know how. At night, I prayed quietly, asking God to lead me where truth lives, not where pride lives. I did not ask to be famous or known. I asked to be real. That prayer felt heavier than all my past prayers combined. As my strength returned fully, a sense of warning settled inside me. It was not fear and it was not threat. It was clarity. I became aware that life is not long just because we expect it to be. I understood that every breath is allowed, not owned. This understanding followed me everywhere. When I laughed with friends, I remembered how quickly sound can fade. When I studied, I remembered how knowledge can disappear if the heart is not shaped by it. When I prayed, I remembered how close the unseen world truly is. The presence that guided me before let me know something important. He revealed to me that many people think they are alive while they are only busy. He showed me that it is possible to speak about God and still be far from Him. This was the warning I was sent back with. Not a warning of punishment first, but a warning of emptiness. I understood that religion without love becomes heavy and cold. I understood that tradition without truth becomes a shadow. These realizations did not make me reject my past. They made me examine it carefully. I began to live more slowly. I listened more. I judged less. When I failed, I admitted it. When I succeeded, I tried not to hold it tightly. I was still a child, still learning, but my heart felt older in a quiet way. I knew my life had been spared for a reason. And that reason was not comfort. It was change. As months passed, I learned that not every truth needs a loud voice. Some truths are meant to be carried quietly, lived daily, and revealed through actions. I stopped trying to explain my experience to everyone. I realized that if my life did not change, my words would mean nothing. I became more aware of how I treated people. I noticed the cleaners at school, the quiet students, the ones nobody praised. Before, I barely saw them. Now, I felt drawn to kindness in simple ways. A greeting, a smile, a listening ear. These small acts felt meaningful, as if they mattered beyond this world. I also learned that suffering is not always punishment. Sometimes it is an invitation. My collapse had looked like failure to many, but inside, it was mercy. I had been stopped before pride became my identity. That realization humbled me deeply. There were days I struggled. Days I felt confused. Days I wished I could return to being a normal child without heavy thoughts. But even on those days, I remembered the calm of that place beyond my body. I remembered the seriousness of truth. Those memories kept me steady. I understood that my life was now a message, even when I said nothing. How I loved, how I forgave, how I sought God honestly. This was the warning I carried, not in words of fear, but in a changed heart. I knew there was still more to learn. And I knew my journey was not only about me. It was about guiding others gently toward truth, humility, and love. Now, as I share this, I know I am still young, still learning, still growing. But those 6 minutes changed the direction of my heart forever. I learned that God is closer than we think, and life is shorter than we imagine. I learned that knowing about God is not the same as knowing Him. I learned that truth begins inside the heart, not on the tongue. What I was shown did not push me toward fear, but toward responsibility. I came to understand that God desires hearts that are humble, honest, and full of love. He is not searching for perfect performances, but for surrendered lives. I realized that pride can live inside religion easily, and that love must be protected carefully. As I continued to reflect, my heart was drawn toward the message of Christ. Not as a religion of noise or argument, but as a call to love God fully and love people deeply. I came to understand that following God is not about proving we are right, but about becoming transformed. He let me know that faith without love is empty, and worship without obedience of the heart is incomplete. To all believers on their Christian journey, I speak gently now. Do not rush through your faith. Walk with God daily. Pray not only with your mouth, but with honesty. Study God's word not to win arguments, but to be changed by it. Love one another deeply, even when it is difficult. Forgive quickly. Serve quietly. Remain humble. Life can stop in a moment. Breath can leave without warning. What will remain is not our titles, not our knowledge, not our family history, but our hearts before God. I was sent back to understand this and to share it through how I live.